Tanki Online is a pretty complicated game, and some might even argue that it's an overcomplicated game. Honestly, I am one of those people, and if you are too, let me know why you think so in the comments. But generally speaking, I did some research and I just want to find out why exactly it's so complicated. So now I have with me three reasons, and we're gonna discuss all of them. We're gonna start off with the one that's, in my opinion, the least significant, all the way to the one that's the biggest reason why Tanki is so complicated. The first one is that Tanki Online wants to keep up with the market. Now, to understand what this actually means, we need to look at the background. Tanki Online was not always a very complicated game. In fact, probably one of the main reasons you and I got to know this game in the first place was because it was a game that was just simple. Like, you go into a battle and you got the arrow keys to move your tank and just the space bar to shoot, and that's mainly it. I mean, I was a noob. I did not know how to rotate my turret, and even if I did, I did not rotate it for some reason. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that it was a really simple game. But the fact is that keeping a game so simple also means that it's gonna get boring sooner or later. What I mean is that, you just go on to the same map in the same game with the same tank and shoot the same people from across the world. So it's bound to get boring sooner or later. Not saying it was like a few months kind of a thing. Yeah, you could play for a few years, but you can't just spend your entire life doing the same thing. And not to mention the fact that there were other tank games in the market that were, pretty fun, and a lot of people did play them. A lot of people played Tanky Online and those games too, like War Thunder, like World of Tanks. So the thing is that Tanky Online just had to do something to, first of all, not board their existing players, and second of all, to bring in more players. So when you combine these two statements, it basically means that they wanted to keep up with the gaming market. They did not want to become irrelevant after a few years. Well, needless to say, unfortunately, that is exactly what happened. I'll just keep it really concise. The main reason I feel like that happened was that the updates were just simply not good. They were not what the players wanted. They were not, contributing to the fairness of the game. In fact, they were making it more unfair, and the game just generally became less fun and less satisfying to play. So yeah, there you have it. That's reason number one. Before we move on to reason number two, which is honestly speaking way less obvious and way more significant, I just want to say if you're new to this channel and you enjoy watching videos like this, then subscribe because there's many more videos to come. With that being said, let's move on to the second reason, which is pretty sinister, and honestly speaking, it's more of a theory that I feel like could be true. Let me know what you think about it. But it's basically that Tanky Online wants to keep the skill gap between the new players and the old players. What I mean by that is basically that, alright, we talked about how initially Tanky Online was not complicated, right? But then it became complicated, and new players are not exactly in abundance. They're very less, and most of the people playing Tanky right now are old players. But here's the thing, it's way easier for older players to understand new concepts rather than new players to understand a whole lot of concepts that include old things and the new things. Alright? Which means that if there's someone new to Tanky Online, for example, they'll have to understand how drones work, how overdrives work, how hull augments work, how status effects work, how turret augments work, and how turrets work, how hulls work, and how different maps work, how different supplies work. But then again, if it's an old player coming back to the game, then they most likely know how more than half of the stuff that I just named works. So they don't exactly need to learn everything right from the start, and therefore you could say that they'll be more skilled at the game because they more know than the newer players, right? On that note, fact of the matter is that games want new players to come in and become cannon fodder. What that means is that, look, someone playing the game for a really long time is someone that considered themselves to be skilled. For example, I'm not the best Tank Union player, but I have a bit of a pride in saying that I am someone that plays the game since more than 10 years, right? So when I go into the game, obviously I'll expect myself to perform really well. Maybe, I'll get beat up by legends, but at the same time, if it's someone that's, let's say, a warrant officer in a pro battle, maybe I will be the one beating them up. The chances of that happening are way more, and that is exactly what Tanky Online wants. They don't want an old player like me, a very loyal player like me of over 10 years, to get beat up by someone that's relatively new to the game. Because of that, they're gonna purposely make the game more complicated because I will understand what the new update is, but the new player will not. And because they don't even understand the game fully, I'll beat them up really easily. I'll have more satisfaction playing the game, I'll have more fun, and essentially speaking, it's just gonna be a better experience from me. So, this entire thing as a whole is basically a scheme set up to make old players feel like they're really better than everyone else, and the new players to feel like I'm just almost there. I'm just gonna upgrade my tank from MK5 to MK6 and I'm definitely gonna beat this guy up. So there's a certain skill gap, right? The new ones want to stay because they feel like they can get stronger, whereas the old ones want to stay because they know they're stronger. So everyone's having a good time, but that's pretentious. Not everyone is having a good time. The old players are just there because they feel better than everyone else, and the new players stay and grind on the game because they want to feel better than everyone else at some point. So this entire cycle keeps going on, and therefore we now have the Tanky Online that you see today. Now the biggest reason as to why I feel like Tanky Online is so complicated, and honestly a lot of you may have guessed it, but it's this one word called money. Yeah, that thing again. So the thing is, it's much more easier to monetize upon a complicated game rather than a game that's really simple. Initially, Tanky Online had one currency, crystals. That was all there was to it. And alright, even when you bring in the pay to win aspect, the best you could do is you could buy crystals. And if you want to talk about the premium account, then sure, the best you could do is either buy crystals with real money or you could buy a premium account with real money. That is all you could do. And that is something that the development team was earning from, which is, I believe, fair enough. But the thing is, this made the game unfair and therefore a lot of people left, right? Like, druggers back in the day were a pretty big thing. People used to buy a lot of crystals and then buy a lot of supplies. Supplies were really scarce for people that were like, not buying in the game. But for the ones that used real money, supplies were like very abundant. You could use any supply at any time and it wouldn't matter at all. So that was a problem. But anyways, coming back to the point, right now you can still buy crystals, but they're not only for upgrading your tank and buying supplies, they're also for upgrading your drones. And at the same time, that's not the only thing you're buying. You're buying bundles which contain a lot of keys, which are for a lot of containers. Containers get you stuff, they get you augments, and if you spend enough money, then you get more augments, and the more rare augments, and you get skins. And the fact that you're not buying augments or alterations or whatever, but instead you're betting on buying them makes it even more complicated. It's just a game of chance. Hopefully I spend $100 more and get that skin. Hopefully I spend $100 more and get that augment. This cycle of investing money into a gamble of containers goes on and on. And not to mention the fact that there's a lot of other stuff that you are also going to be buying. For example, those things that they have for mini games and those passes, the one that comes with rubies. Speaking of rubies, by the way, the game initially had, like I said, one currency. After that, they had tank coins. After that, they had rubies. Now, the fact is that when you're going to the point where you're, encouraging people to spend money into the game, then there's definitely gonna be a lot of currencies in that one game. And that is the case with Tanky Online, when it transitioned from a game that was free to play for everyone to a pay to win game, and now to the point where it's letting the pay to win players gamble their way through the game. And I'll link a video in the description. It's from a really good YouTuber that I watch often, and there's an entire 10-minute or so video explaining how gambling works in mobile games and video games in general. So yeah, you can watch that, but basically the main takeaway is more things in the game means that there's more things that you can spend money on. And aside from that, more currencies in the game also means that you're indirectly encouraged to spend more in the game. And lastly, the thing is that imagine there's a player that has everything in the game. They have every skin, they have every augment, they have every feature that they need, every turret and hull is maxed out. Now what? Well, let me tell you. They're gonna add a new augment and they're gonna add a new event, a new mini game. Now, this is not me saying that just stop updates at all. It's me saying that every new update comes with a gamble, which means that it's not like they're gonna add a new augment into the shop and they're gonna say that get us 300,000 crystals and you can have the augment. They're gonna say this augment is now also in the containers. So buy this bundle of 200 containers again, and even though they're not going to say this, but even though 190 and 195 of them are going to be supplies and just basic common stuff, it's okay. The rest of them, the 1-2 containers left behind, maybe you're going to get the augment in them, maybe. But if you don't, it's okay, we have another bundle for you. Just spend a bit of more money from your pocket, or rather your parents' pocket. But anyways, this is this entire cycle of money making. I made a video specially dedicated to this like 6-7 months ago. I'll have a link to that in the description as well, about how Tanki Online basically involves a lot of gambling, which is essentially illegal in a lot of countries. And this is exactly why Tanki Online was banned in a lot of countries. So yeah, if you're interested in that, it's gonna pop up at the end of this video. So yeah, you can watch it if you'd like. And just to let you guys know, I have no problem with people profiting from the game that they themselves made. It's completely up to them, not hating on anyone. Just pointing these things out, that according to what I think, these are the three biggest reasons why Tanki Online is so complicated and, dare I say, overcomplicated. So if you liked the video and if you agree with anything that I said, then do hit the like button because it helps the video a lot. Subscribe for more videos like this and comment your thoughts. Share this with your friends because I'm pretty sure they also want to know why this game is so complicated. With that, I'll see you in the next one.